Hello, boys and girls. In Lesson 5.5, Part 2, we will find the discount or the markdown by setting up and solving proportions and or decimal multiplication. So another word for discount is also mark down because you are marking down the original price of an item by a certain percentage. So let's think about what all this means. What percent represents one whole item? Well, if we think about a whole as a fraction, we would think as 1 over 1. And therefore, if we set up a proportion to find what percent of 100 or what part of 100 1 over 1 is, that would be 100 over 1. So therefore, the percent that represents a whole would be 100%. Another way that we could see that is by using decimals. If one whole is represented by 1, we know to change any number into a percent, we move the decimal point over 2 places to the right. We would fill in those bubbles in with zeros, therefore giving us 100%. So when we're thinking about discount, if we know that there is a 20% discount on the item, what percent of the whole am I now paying? Well, if the whole cost minus the discount is what gives us what we pay, well, let's think of that in terms of percentages. The whole cost as a percentage would be represented as 100%. The discount is 20%. So when we subtract it, what we are paying is 80% of that item. That is called a markdown. So then what would you think a markup would mean? Well, a markup would mean that we are adding to an original item. So again, if we have an original cost, in order to mark it up, we would have to add the markup price. And that will give us the amount you are paying. Many stores do this when they pay for a certain item from a distributor or from a warehouse. So when you go shopping in, let's say, Macy's, and there is a sweater that costs a certain amount, that is not how much Macy's paid for it. So Macy's marks it up a certain percentage so that they can make money off of that sweater. Once that sweater is not sold, then that's when they start giving discounts. So if we were to see this in terms of percents, again, the original cost would be represented as 100%. The markup, well, it says here is a 10% markup. So what you are paying is 110% of the original item. So how can you represent the sale price of an item after a discount of 10% is as an expression? Well, we're going to use the variable x to represent the original price. So if we wanted to know the sale price or the amount we are paying after a discount, well, we will have to use subtraction in order to find out what is the percentage that I'm paying. So if the original item costs 100%, and we are applying a 10% discount, that means we are paying 90% of the original price. So, in order to use an expression, we would say that 90% or 0.90x is what our sale price would be. Another way that we could write that is by writing it as a fraction, 90 over 100x, or reduced, it would be 9/10 x. So, how can we represent the price of an item after a markup of 20%? Well, remember that a markup is an additional amount being added on to the original price. So, again, if the original price is represented by 100%, and we are adding an additional 20% of that item, then we have 120% markup. That's how much a person would pay. So therefore, if we do 1.20, which is the decimal value for 120%, times the original price, you would have the expression you need to see how much an item costs after that markup. Again, we could use a fraction, 120 over 100x, or the reduced version, which is 6 over 5x. So let's think about this question. Sally has a discount card that reduces the price of her grocery bill in a certain grocery store by 5%. If C represents the cost of Sally's groceries, which expression represents Sally's grocery bill? So let's pull out the important words. First, it is a discount. So already we know we are going to be subtracting our percentages. Okay? The percentage is by 5%. C is going to represent the cost of Salary's groceries. They want to know what the price of her grocery bill is, not how much the discount is. Therefore, we want to know how much she will pay. So again, if we have the total amount represented by 100% and subtract that 5% discount, we would have that the cost of her bill will be 95% of the total cost of her salary of her groceries. So 95% as a decimal is 0.95 times by C, which is the cost of Sally's groceries, and that will give us answer choice B, which is the cost of Sally's grocery bill.